merch items. I got our Meade Truth Cup out. Yeah, got a little sip of the old coffee. That's good. Hey, let me tell you what, we got a special guest tonight. It is Sidney Durham, our county attorney for Meade County. We got a lot to talk about. Mark is booting up some stuff on the computer as well as we get ready to talk about some issues. I got a Rand Paul message I want to talk about. We're going to talk about a couple of the bills. I think we're going to revisit some of that conversation from last week. But most importantly, I'd like to welcome our special guest tonight, Sidney Durham.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, hold on, applause.
There's the applause. There we go.
Oh, no, it's not funny. No. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the reason why we have Sidney on is, first of all, congratulations on y'all's first town hall back in Muldra. And now you got another one coming up on Monday.
Right.
Tell me about that and what you think the big topics will be for that district.
Well, I was really impressed with how the first one went. I think the people of Muldrow were really glad that we made the effort to do that. Now, that was the judge's idea. So the topics in Doe Valley area, I'm not sure what's on the slate. I knew there were some issues in Muldrow that we were going to talk about, and we did. There were some water issues. There was, of course, some city issues that we couldn't tackle. People did ask us about the road situation at Muldrow, but
I'd like to clear the air, though, because this all happened over the holidays. Y'all all got sworn in, and Troy comes into office, and bam!
Yes.
And so, I mean, I think the first thing I even thought of when this was all going down was, and I know Troy well enough to know, he's probably already got his nose in that to find out, these are our citizens, and what does that impact, and is this legal? Now, I would assume, given my historical reference of him, he probably was running down the hall and say, "Can they do that?" What was that like?
Our first week, we were hit with a lot of issues, and we just tackled them one by one. Our first fiscal court meeting, I mean, the agenda was packed full with things. We're trying to do a new garbage franchise, figuring that out. We, of course, have been talking about the water since over the holidays, trying to do a new road ordinance. There was a lot of things on that first meeting, and we just hit one issue at a time and did our best. And most importantly, just wanted to show up and answer phone calls and emails and talk to people. That's what we did mostly the first couple weeks.
Yeah, I understand he didn't just talk to supervisors. He went down to meet the people doing a lot of the work, too.
That's right.
So that's crazy.
Right.
That's what you look for. I've heard lots of compliments just out of the blue. I was thinking, we were talking about this earlier before the show. I've ran into some individuals, and it's hard. They're Republicans, but even because Troy wasn't from here,
right? It
was a lot of trust,
right?
And they're very impressed in the first, few weeks, now months, a month into it, and doing a great job.
Right.
But with that has also come some issues in your department, especially dealing with the recent post. Let me pull that up real, folks. We just had a post a couple weeks ago, went out on one of our topics, and a gentleman had posted this, and it was really asking about, and this came up at the Muldra Town Hall, and I told this gentleman we were going to be talking about this tonight, so tune in, and you can call in. Mark, what's the number?
It is 270-945-3418.
270-945-3418. Man, you sound like a radio DJ.
Well, it's your system here,
It's quality gear. But anyway, if you're looking at the memo, this is what you might get from the Meade County Attorney's office at Sidney's. And it's to get after what I heard from Troy at the Muldra Town Hall. And you can go back and play that. That was on Meade Truth. I know they took pictures and only posted that on y'all's site. I wish they would have just shared the video, because we're doing this for free. It's not like we charge the county anything to do this. I know there's another guy that does video, and I think that's a contract, but I mean, we're on the ground. In fact, next week's live stream's got new equipment. We've personally procured some zoom in cameras, so you can really get on camera. The audio will be 10 times better, so you can hear the problems. I would assume that when we go to that, there's going to be, we'll talk about that in a minute. But to the road point, it was brought up there And I just want to come off the top like I'm ignorant and I just bought property and you know I've only been here a year, and if you don't read the deed, some people with private property that share a private road with other neighbors, in the deed there will be a requirement to make payments for the upkeep of that road. Is that right?
Well, this has brought about all kinds of issues. It wasn't as cut and dry as I initially thought. You know, basically, we had about $30,000 approximately of uncollected private road fees. And then we had about 150 letters approximately went out to people. Well, what we didn't consider is when I got a list of property owners, how much they owed, where they were located. Well, it became apparent that they weren't the people that originally agreed, some of them, to do that road.
Right.
And then...
So his property's been sold 2 or 3 times.
That's right.
From deeds past, and like a tax bill, you pass that tax bill on, but the road fees were not passed on.
That's right. And so I completely understand why people were upset because they're like, we didn't know anything about this.
Right.
So there's a question if we're going to be able to collect some of these. Now, Troy and I, the judge and I, both think it's important to clear up the status of every single one of these properties.
That's right.
So then after we leave, this won't come up again. We want to completely clear.
So you're saying that y'all have sent a letter to every member, regardless of deeds past, that you think owes money based off of the property location.
That's
and
right.
and that original agreement. And the expectation is that if you're one of those property owners that's third, fourth iteration of ownership,
Right.
and you didn't know that, then we want to get to that problem statement, because it's too
Right.
hard to go through all the deed and whether you knew it or not knew it to figure that out. So, but the goal of this was to get those caught up, because you can't turn a private road into a county road, and where the county assumes responsibilities until the private road is brought up to its natural state. And if I correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard Troy say is, those monies, you have to bring your road up to level. Then the county will come in and do the rest of the work to make it a county road. Is that right?
Well, and to backtrack to the money a little bit, it becomes a problem for us if, as a government entity, if we have money that we need to collect and we haven't done so. It's a duty that we have. You can't just tell one person they have to pay and tell another they don't have to. And then
That's right.
I have a statutory duty as the county attorney
Right.
to collect all monies that are due and owing to the county. But we may end up making the decision, the illegal decision, to discharge some of these because, for example, when you sell property, there should have been a title search, and we should have had a lien on maybe some of these delinquent road fees.
Yeah,
So-
that's the question I have.
Yes. So this has brought about so many more issues. So I don't know.
That's like a lot of the when you see quick claim deeds,
Yeah.
then it probably gets overlooked because you're just a quick claim deed.
Well, and there's really no mechanism to see from transfer to transfer unless something is recorded.
Right. So it's not like the tax office where the sheriff goes and collects taxes.
right.
That's like an boom, boom, boom. Why would it be hard to not set up that same type of a system for private roads? You know how many houses in Meade County. First of all, I know we get it in the Meade RECC and the Kentucky Living. I think they put that paper together, and Meade RECC tells you exactly how many houses are getting electricity in Meade County. So you know there's a house on a road, and how many of those houses probably have private roads. But I mean, that's obviously going to be something for the judge and the magistrates to tackle. But
Yes, it's brought about a
y'all have
lot-
ripped the Band-Aid off.
We did. And so basically what we're trying to do now is to fix something that hasn't been addressed. My secretary, Tammy, she's talked to everybody on these road issues, and she's really tackled this for me. She's been with us for 16 years, and she said that she hasn't sent any of these letters in, probably 15 years.
Well, let me ask you a procedural question about this. I mean, and maybe you don't have this answer today, but does the procedure call for a lien to be put on a property when
That's
this happens?
what the ordinance says.
So
Yes.
so it was a matter of that, because that didn't happen.
That's right.
Say 12, 13, 15, 16 years ago, whenever it was first brought in.
Right.
Now the houses or the property is sold.
That's right.
Okay. So,
So is
going forward,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a problem.
So
That
going-
just needs to make sure.
But is that in a zoning? Is that a zoning office responsibility, or is
So-
that, or whose responsibility does that lay in?
Now it is, because a lot of this is pre 1998. So it's like
That's when my house was built.
it's a private road, and like you said, there's certain standards to bring it up to a county road so we can incorporate it into our system. And that's what you have to pay for. Now, say if you build a home, we have planning and zoning where you have to follow certain things, and your builder has to do certain things.
That's right.
Part of one of the issues that has come about is some of these contractors have taken money from some of these people, and they did not pay. So these people paid their contractor. The contractor never turned it over to the county. So these are the kind of issues that are getting brought up. And some of the contractors have passed away.
Yeah, I believe it.
So
Who are you going to get?
so the thing is like I'm keeping track of the list, everybody that's called, everybody that's emailed, and then I'm going to go to the judge and the magistrates and basically tell them what I believe is legally collectible and what isn't.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about $30,000.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's not. It's a sum of money that we could use in the county, but it's not
in the example I posted, and I'll show it up again. But I mean, it's for this one particular person, it's $1,185.
And that's a high.
That is a high one, probably. But to me, I mean, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost like paying for gas for the winter, so it was
Right.
prepaying. But if I knew that I would never have to worry, and especially with the rain we had just a couple of weeks ago,
Right.
as hard as it rained for some of these private roads, that's a complete washout. And you got to go get somebody like Doug Biddle to come out with his truck and drop some gravel and redo it.
that was
a plug, Doug.
That was one of the things that was talked about at the last fiscal court meeting. Remember, is there was a gentleman that you and I talked to in Muldrow, and he was concerned about how do they get their road brought up to they don't have his concern was they don't have the money to pay for the gravel because gravel prices have gone up.
No, I know that too. Yeah.
And they don't have the money on enough people on the road to pay for the road to be brought up to county standards. So they're stuck with their private road, but it's washing out every time.
Yes.
Every time there's rain, but it's unfortunate because some of these properties are 30, 40 years old, and
what he's saying is the person that he bought his home from, which was a business entity, maybe didn't do exactly right with the road situation. I'm not saying whether that's true or not, but that's what he was indicating.
What I'm picking up that you're laying down, though, is that your office is seeking to figure out how many houses are affected.
Yeah.
Collect from those that you can collect from because lawfully you can.
And some people have paid, and there's as low as some of them is $60.
Right.
And they'll come in and say, I don't know if I actually owe this because the person before me did this, but here's the $60.
If it's going to get me to a county road, here you go. Yeah, exactly. But
I mean, some of these roads are already done, right?
That's right.
So once they get to a certain percentage, they go ahead and do the road.
Yeah, I
and bring it up. And that's the thing is that the county's kind of caught. If we didn't put a lien on it back then, it's like, you're losing your claim.
Yeah.
Right. You're not, if we didn't do everything we were supposed to do back in the day, I think that's where you're coming from. You're finding out, okay, well, maybe there's some things we can't do anything about because it's changed hands once, twice,
That's right.
3 times.
And people, I was joking. I said people be screaming at Tammy, and then by the end of the conversation, she'll have them laughing. But, I'm just trying to be fair. And the judge always says what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And we're trying to look into this and do the right thing. And everybody's like, why are you spending so many man hours on $30,000? I'm like, we're trying to do this right. And then more importantly, going forward, we're trying to do this right.
Slow is fast and fast is smooth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, that's the job. I mean,
It's a shame that you're having to catch up 30 years of what could have been systemized. But again, I mean, how long did we go without planning and zoning office?
That's the whole thing, right? Is what we're what we're talking about is as the county was growing up with planning and zoning, this happened.
Well,
right?
I'm
There's
going to
a
go
line that's got to be drawn there somewhere.
I got it, but let's go down a different road on that conversation. I come from a military background. When I came here in 2012, there was not a lot of houses here. It was still a lot of farmland in 2012. And before 2012, when I came here as an old Cav guy, it was late 90s. This was all farmland. And when you get to a point where like Fort Knox military installation grows and some of us retiree guys, we want that little house out in the middle of nowhere and we want to build it up and all that stuff. And it's got a 40-foot, or 100-foot private road to get to the house or whatever. They were okay with that back then. But as the years go by, you didn't probably have a lot of planning and zoning in play to go out there and do all this stuff. I'm sure they did inspections and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, when you're building your driveway, the rules for a driveway, 100 foot, 200 foot, 300 foot, but
contractors,
there's farms here with 1 mile driveways.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, like the farmland up there at 313 and 60, right?
There is a lot more homes.
Yeah, they parceled that, cut it up, and so guess what? There's a right of way on that because of how they cut it up.
However, most of those were built after the system.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. But years ago, when they were doing that and parceling off a farm that nobody wanted to keep, those roads.
We've had this issue all along because, like Mark said, people around here, they have very, very long driveways, and there's a lot of people on those driveways.
Yeah. Because what happens is a lot of times you built a road to your house where you wanted your house to be in the middle of your land, wherever it was. Now you've decided, okay, well, I'm going to sell
that piece.
Well, I'm going to sell. I'm going to break up a piece and give it to my son. I'm going to give one to my daughter. I'm going to give one to my other son or whatever, and they come off of the same driveway.
Right.
Well, once they pull that piece out, all they're doing is giving a right of way on that driveway.
Right.
For that piece, for that lot.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't making a. This is not where you're making a subdivision.
Right. No.
Right.
No.
However. Now, fast forward 30 years, somebody came along and they bought that lot. Somebody else bought the farm. The right of way is still there on the deed.
Yeah.
Well, somebody else bought this other house. Somebody else bought this house. Now it's not in the same family. Now there's this long road that goes up to the farm, and there's 3 houses over here. That's what we're up against. And it's like they can't afford to take that 100-foot road or a half mile or mile road and make it a county road, right? And however because one of the things that they talk about is, can you take part of a road?
Right.
It's like, well, if the only way to do that is and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if the same person owns all the land from the point of the road back to their back to their house, they could legally, I think they could call that a driveway from that point on.
Well,
it wouldn't be part of the road.
And it's kind of like the issue we were talking about at fiscal court. A new business off of, what's that road called? Is that 1638? I think I'm wrong about that. Where Everett and Alley's used to be right in front of.
No, it's right here. 313. It's 313 now.
Okay, it's 313.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a business, and we're talking about them coming off Nelson Road or coming off the bypass, the 4-lane highway. And they were talking about only one part of it. Well, planning and zoning statement was, well, that's the people that live at the end still have to drive at the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they have a say.
So they got to drive through a business to get to their home?
Well, they have a say. They have a say, even though.
Because there's a right of way. It has to be a right of way.
You can't landlock them.
Is it a?
They have to agree to the county, to everybody that wants to take a private road into a county road, a certain percentage, depending on which ordinance we're talking about, they have to approve that. And the argument is, well, they're in the back, they're not using, and it's like, no, they drive the whole length of
They
it,
do.
if that makes sense.
They do, but the question is back to my scenario is, if that person if you say, okay, I'm going to go back to their property and stop at their property, wouldn't that just make that their driveway from that point back?
Well, and we've seen that where a county will say chip and seal, and then the county road will end and it'll get gravel back
right.
to sub.
And they're responsible for it all the way back to
That's
their
right.
property.
Yes.
Or back to their.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a certain point where there's a difference between it being a road and being a driveway. But when
Yeah.
we're in this situation where you have a mile long, it's blurry.
Well, I mean, I look at Troy's driveway.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, his address is Churchman. Well, I don't know if he's
Churchill, yeah.
whatever his lane is,
Yeah.
right? And but he's like the only one back there.
Well,
Right? Maybe there's one other person. or
no,
something.
that's his
It's all
mother-in-law, father-in-law.
It's all his property back there, right?
It is. Well, he owns all of it, where they timbered and on the left side and on the right side. So
Yeah.
he's all the way straight.
So I mean, it's not a. I mean, it's paved, but whoever had it paved before, whatever. But
I thought it's gravel.
no, it's paved. It's kind of like, well, it's at least chipped
It's
and
like
sealed.
chipped and sealed.
Mm.
We use
Yeah.
that. We talk about his road a lot though, because that's how conceptually our conversations about his road kind of made us be able to understand it. Because I know what
Mm-hmm.
he's talking about. I didn't know anything about this before I took office. I mean, that's just what being the county attorney is.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things. These are the things that affect people.
Yes.
Especially people in Meade County.
Yes.
So, well, I definitely think we've tackled the whole road thing. So, you also got quick to work on.
I got one more thing on that.
Go ahead.
I mean, because I don't know if we. So right now we don't know how. We don't know how many people are affected right now, or do we have an idea?
What I'm going to do is I was going to give 30 days from when the letters went out, and then I'm going to kind of reconvene, see who has paid, see who hasn't. I got a bunch of deeds. Everybody's bringing their deeds in, and just kind of whittle the list down, and then kind of decide person by person, and then let them know what the decision is. That's kind of the next.
So what about? Do we know? I mean, going to the gentleman that came to fiscal court.
Yes.
It's a different situation.
Yes.
But do we know if there's any
Grandfather
grant,
clause?
Well, any grant money or anything like that we can apply
He actually
to folks like that?
He actually called me again today. I didn't get back with him yet. He left me a message. He said he wants to develop his own kind of housing cooperative or kind of
HOA type thing.
HOA type thing. And how would he go about doing that? And
That's not a bad idea. I mean, that's one way to get
it's-
after a general neighborhood, right? Like you said, the farm was built, and then these other houses popped up, and now you're part of a co-op, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Or
mean, you have to
HOA.
but I think you got to get everyone.
Well,
you have
and
to buy
maybe
into
he's
the
our-
HOA.
Well, maybe they're all doing that. That's okay.
well, I'm just like.
It's a lot of door knocking. We might know something about that.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I'm just thinking about, okay, you come to me, you're knocking on my door, and now I'm going to join an HOA, which is going to cost me money every month.
right. But
Do I really want to get into
Well,
that?
I don't know.
he was asking me, the message said he wanted to know how to do this, and I did not have time to look into it today. But my thoughts are is he's going to have to hire a private attorney to draft
Yeah.
this. This is not something for me necessarily. I can't be everybody's attorney. you
Well,
know?
no, I mean, and that's what I was going to say. I don't think that really falls into your
Duties,
Obviously,
just-
you want to help people.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think the way you help them is to say, listen, you have to go.
Yes.
Maybe there's some people you can recommend or something like that.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. You could probably do that, but you're going to need the assistance of a paid attorney.
Which is
was-
expensive.
It's
Yeah.
expensive. Yeah.
I was going to say because it's probably going to need to be somebody who's
familiar with
familiar with like property. Property.
Maybe you get with Doe Valley's attorney. They seem to be pretty good at HOA
Well,
fees.
they're very good at they're very good at it. But that's been around a long time. They kind
Yeah,
of
that's
started
what I'm
that from the
saying.
beginning. So, well, I guess
Four score and many years ago.
Yeah, it's 1960s.
And I've talked to them about some of the
Mm-hmm.
things, the issues that they've had, like vacant boats and abandoned cars and different things. And I've had to say, you all are an HOA. You need to contact your private attorney.
Mm-hmm.
The usual mechanisms.
Yeah, because I don't even think. Well, I would say the PVA or not the PVA. PVA has still jurisdiction, and so too does. While they may have their own guidelines of what type of house you build, what it looks like, and all that other stuff, they still have to get the property, the folks that assess and inspect and say you can build or you can't build.
The planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Planning and zoning still plays a role because markers and surveys and all that other stuff. So
yeah, but I think that when it's a private road, they have to pay for that survey. They have to do all of that themselves.
Yes.
That's not something that the county's going to do.
no, that's what I'm saying.
And so they just have, but they'll submit through planning and zoning, I guess, to make sure that it's.
And
When it's a private, they don't. There's a minimum standard for
that's right.
private roads
and
too.
that's in the statutes. And then so we have an ordinance, but the statutes give us those guidelines too. And part of the issue is it's not like we're trying not to help citizens. It's not like we're trying not to give them good roads, but we don't have the money as a county to fully fund this.
I mean, so for every person that that like the gentleman we've been talking about a little bit, for every one there's for every one of him there's probably 1,000
more.
others.
Yeah.
Well, I think what y'all and I said this earlier, you ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
But you've ripped the Band-Aid off. Sometimes a bad problem is a good problem to have because it's just a chink in our armor that has to be addressed because we are growing.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the whole conceptual conversation that I kind of stirred the pot with when Troy started running and I started talking about the comprehensive plan. And to his credit too, he's already rallied all the forces to get back and look. We have some things that we talked about that we want to do, but we needed to get actionable things. And I know that they've already started those discussions again. So what can we get done, I think, is now the conversation. And then let's start making that 2025 and that 2030. But you kind of almost got to knock some of these things out and set up a pathway so that these things don't happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you have to see where you have to baseline.
Yeah.
That's where we're at is
That's
baselining, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys been you all been in for 2 months.
Yeah.
Not quite 2 yet, right? It'll be 2 months on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be 2 months on Wednesday.
Yep.
So so you all have done a lot already. I mean, already it's been. I mean, 7 weeks,
I like
7
to
full
think
weeks.
so. I like to.
I feel like you guys have done a lot. Had to deal with a lot of things, and that's okay. Because understanding your baseline you have to understand your baseline before you can go to improve. So when you talk about the comprehensive plan and things like that, we have to draw a line and say, okay, are we really where we think we are?
Right.
And then we can start moving forward. So how do we bring roads up to before we start talking about expanding 313 and even 79, which is coming, we need to talk about where are we at with these roads? Are we really where we think we need to be or where we think we are, and go from there so that we can start putting our money in the right places.
Right. It's a project. Now we were working on a new road ordinance to kind of flesh out some things, and maybe we didn't want to start on these roads until we had gotten 100% paid in the new ordinance, so we didn't have this problem. It's at the 90% paid in the other one. And then we kind of pulled that new road ordinance until we could get through some of this to make sure we had written the new one considering all these issues.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something where, and I know we're hanging out on the road issue quite a bit, but
You sure are.
But is this something that we where we feel like we're going to be able to draw a line? It's okay. Anything that's before this date, that was like maybe it's before the last ordinance or whatever, and we say okay, and if it's changed hands and if the property's changed hands and the date or something, is that what we're looking for? Something that we can say
it's more complicated because it really needs to be on.
Because you can't just say that it's okay for this person and not okay for that person. So
no, but there's got to be some criteria that gets checked off to say this is
right. I think that and this is
I
what
oversimplified, but I think that's what we're trying to
This
find.
is what I think I heard her say, and I'm going to try to summarize it because I want to talk about the crew you have.
Yeah.
What I heard you say is that we are going to follow every statute all the way down to your liability.
Right.
To the point where you are or you are not liable by law.
That's right.
To Troy's point that you made earlier, and I'll restate your quote, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. is that the correct quote?
Yeah, and that's why I have to look at these people individually.
That's right.
But more than likely, like what Mark said, there's going to be a period of time that does come into play where we did not take the action as a county, and it is a time issue as well, but it's also an individual issue.
Yeah, that's right. And due process.
Yeah.
I feel like what I'm hearing you say is that you're giving everybody due process.
Right.
And
So-
the key here, for everyone that's out there that might be listening or listening to this later, is communicate.
That's right.
That letter was meant simply to say, let's start a conversation
That's
about
right.
this. So call the office.
Yes.
Let's talk about this.
There might be a program that
Yes.
does that.
Yeah, it's called a conversation, I think.
The Meade Truth?
Yeah.
On the Meade Truth? Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
right.
I'm punning now at this point. What I did want to go to, and I want to talk to you personally and professionally, I think that although, when you run the primary, obviously there was still some time. She was still in office, and then, it was a great farewell for
Yes.
her service. And, you're coming up. And as you're coming up, I'm watching Sydney. She's like that horse in the race. Oh, the race is on, and here comes, Sydney in the back street. Yeah. But you were racking and stacking a team.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you had a vision, and I politely stood back and kind of chuckled personally, because you had introduced a couple of them to me along
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
And I was joking because I said, I want to make a complaint about my First Amendment right being violated. And everybody's like, oh, we can do this. And anyway, but to talk about that subject, talk to me about what was in your mind when you got through the primary, and then where you were going to go with this, because you've come a long way.
Yeah.
And the people you have on your team, I feel like you're racked and stacked.
I'm so lucky with the people that I have. We started working on a different delegation of duties, different roles for people in my office. And they jumped in for all the changes. And if you've been working somewhere 20 years, it's hard when a new person comes in who's younger than you and says, I know you can't see maybe right now, but just trust me.
Yeah.
And they didn't complain. They didn't ask me questions. They didn't judge me. And now, I mean, we're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And it's all due to the people that stuck around and then the new people that I brought.
It's important to have that continuity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm so fortunate. Like Jennifer Pruitt, and it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Jennifer.
She's my assistant county attorney, my first assistant who does criminal court. She came in and revamped our insurance monitoring program, our traffic safety diversion. She updated it. She made it more systematic. I have I've split kind of my secretaries up in one that does criminal, one that does.
So if I get a ticket, I got to go up against her in court.
Got to go up against Jennifer. Yeah.
All right. She better be ready for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I ain't getting no
And
tickets.
I think there was a lot of questions.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions about, did I have the experience? Was I ready? But I've gotten a lot of compliments since I've taken office. And I think that, like with Troy, people were skeptical. And I think that both of us have come in hot and proved ourselves to be very dedicated to
I don't disagree with that statement at all. And when I said I chuckled, I wasn't laughing at.
Yeah.
I was chuckling because that's what a leader does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of have a vision where they want it to go, but you couldn't do anything yet. You're like strapped down, like you're just ready to open the gate, boys, and let her go. 8-second ride, here we go. But I mean, you were ready to launch with a full blown strategy. I think your time serving as an assistant county attorney is well showing and where you wanted to go. And that's always the thing, right? When you're kind of in the back seat, respect to the person who's in charge, but you might see things a little bit differently. And now you're in charge.
You got some ideas.
You got some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're working.
One of our issues is we still have our doors locked. And that's something that people in the community, we've tried to prove, even though our door's locked, that you can come in. I make appointments, I call, but it's a safety issue for us at this point. Every week we get voicemails of threats to us. And
Sure.
it's a couple individuals, and people are like, well, her door's not open. I have to protect my staff first and foremost, and I'm prepared to defend my office. I took office The people voted for me. I'm a servant, and I would defend that office with my life. But those two ladies out front,
Yeah.
I'm not going to put them as sitting ducks. So I've talked to Troy about revamping, remodeling. That's going to cost money.
Yeah.
And to make sure we're safe in there. So people are like, well, the doors are still locked. We thought when she took office, the doors would come open. We're still getting threatened.
You know, things you have to think about. When you go to like, Louisville or Elizabethtown or what have you, you have to go through security and things like that to get to get into your servants. And it's an unfortunate thing, but there's there's always going to be those 1 or 2 or 3 people out there that are, that cause, that want to cause harm, or at least they talk about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this day and age, you have to believe it.
Yeah, I do.
You have to at least treat it like it's real.
Yeah.
I take it seriously. And I do want to say publicly, the county has been so good to us.
Yeah.
We're in that building. We have plenty of space. We can do our job because they provided us with that space.
You mean you're not all curled up in one of those
That's
corners
right.
like this trying
That's
to...
right. And we were. We were, and then that building became available. But I want everyone to know that's listening, just because our door's locked doesn't mean you can't come in. I just have to make sure my ladies are safe.
So how do we contact you?
So our phone number, either you knock on the door, but what we prefer is you call us. Our number's on the door. If people don't have cell phones, they knock, and then someone answers, asks them who they're there to talk to. We kind of check in our computer to make sure there's someone that we kind of deal with or we have a case with, and then we let you in. You meet with me, you meet with Jennifer, you sit by Lana and her desk. But I just have to vet everyone that comes in to make sure my people are safe.
Now, you and I have something in common. In fact, you were probably one of my go-tos for information because we share something unique, which is the custody of children that need somebody that can care for them, and it's near and dear to my heart. So Family Matters, it's an experience to go through this. I will tell you, emotionally, it's draining.
It's awful.
Let's
be real.
It is. And to watch in some of these cases, there are so many caseloads. I was embarrassed because the state, and thank God they put guardian ad litems in, and because they move through the caseworkers and they're not necessarily equipped to respond to all of the data that's related to each case.
Yes.
And we just went through that. And I know we have those problems here too in Meade County. In fact, being a Journey Church, Mark, we talk about this often too, because we probably have most of the foster parents in Journey Church.
Well, there's a big population.
And that there's still a high demand for foster.
We have foster families that are, they're like 6, 7 kids, so they know, and both of them, both of those cases, they have their own kids and foster kids, and and I don't want to make it sound like they're that they're trying to get rich off of foster kids, because they're not.
I don't get anything for it.
I mean,
I don't get.
They're doing this because they're felt led by God to be able to reach out and take care of kids. And I
kind of wish I did, though, because then I could be home all day with them, and I love them so much. But anyway, go ahead. But I'm listening more.
It's but they are, and those people are all active in our church, and they're
in your school.
In fact, I put ours into school because of the structure of the school is 12 to 1, which is actually an interesting subject we were talking about on bills the other day, because there's a bill talking about funding, right to choose schools. And so if you have the right to choose a school and you choose a private school, those schools should get federal funding too, or state funding. But anyway, back to my point was, knowing that was like part of your passion, how is that changing in your office for how you handle these cases and deal with these cases in Meade County? There's got to be some.
Well, part of it was I hired my 2 best friends, but I hired the people that I worked with. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you weren't right for my office, it was too important. So they became my friends because Aaron and Jennifer were both guardian ad litems in juvenile court.
Right.
They were both defense attorneys. And if you can be on the other side of a prosecutor and we can still have a good relationship,
Yeah.
then I wanted you on my team. So I said that I hired people that had been defense attorneys and had represented children.
Yeah.
Because when we're campaigning and stuff, we hear about these career prosecutors. I was a defense attorney. I think it's really, really important that you don't just steamroll people and you see the other side.
Yeah.
So although I love Aaron and Jennifer as people and they're my friends, I hired them because they're the two very best people for the job. I saw Aaron, she was the juvenile court prosecutor in Breckenridge County, and I said, I want her if I win, because I could see she had that sensibility that
Yeah.
I wanted. Because when you're in juvenile court, you've been there.
Yep.
You're not just a prosecutor. You're a cruise director. You're a collaborator.
Yeah.
You're a mediator.
That's it.
You're not prosecuting parents in the same sense that you do in criminal court. Sometimes you have to.
And
work-
sometimes you have to separate the criminal act from the whole
That's it.
process of
That's
getting
right.
them back on track.
That's
and
right.
and it's even harder when their family,
Yes.
like in my situation, because this is somebody that I treated like a daughter.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And but
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you what, drugs are the worst thing in the world, and they're
then-
destroying communities.
And then you have to have someone as the. I'll say this over and over. My job now is so much easier than it was being the juvenile court prosecutor of 2 counties. To handle the secondary trauma of sitting in that courtroom 2 days a week, 12 hours, 8 hours.
Yep.
You know, you have to have somebody that has the mental fortitude and takes care of themselves.
Yeah.
And if they're burnt out,
Yeah.
they talk to you. You're a teammate. You collaborate. If they need to take a step back, because
You can get close to some of them cases.
well, I adopted one.
Yeah. No, I mean, you get attached.
Well,
I mean,
you know-
I had a dream the other night. This is how, because I'm coming up on our court case.
Yeah.
The judge still hasn't ruled on the motions hearing,
Yeah.
whether or not he's going to allow a visitation again. So I'm like, every night we have no idea what's going to
You're in
happen.
limbo.
We're in total limbo. But the case in March is the disposition hearing. And so I'm like, I'm afraid we're going to walk in there and judge is going to say, hey, you need to take the kids. I know that's not going to happen because there's so much they got to do that. But I'm like, I had a dream the other night. He's like, you need to give the kids back.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And so it's wearing on you.
it is totally
It's
wearing on me.
Mentally wearing on you.
Yeah,
It's
well,
gotta-
because we love these kids, and
Right.
we
Well, yeah.
know if they go back, and it's so hard for the state. I already told my guardian ad litem, if I got to buy a private investigator to validate that they're doing what they're doing to bring that evidence to court, I'll do whatever it takes.
Right.
Because that didn't seem like anyway. But I'm digressing into my own problems. But for you, it seems like you built the quality staff that you want. Your vision is coming to truth. And not only are you doing that, but it's the symbiotic relationship between the judge and the mission of the county and the direction it's going.
Yes.
It seems like you're providing great counsel for all of our leaders that were elected. And just it seems like we're off to a great start.
Well,
Yeah.
he keeps laughing. He said, because I keep saying, I'm so proud of you. You say that. But I heard some comments before he took office that was like, well, he's going to teach us all like privates. He's going to teach us all like we're soldiers.
That was
in the
people.
army.
That was people trying to. They're just. They were. That's what.
Well-
that was being put out
But it's
as part of
not-
the campaign.
It's not true because the amount of stuff and stress and logistics and life or death scenarios and just the volume of things that he dealt with in his career.
Yeah.
He's great at this. He's used to a level
Yeah.
that we haven't seen.
I've tried to explain this. I don't know how many podcasts we've done. And I started this just to help get that word out.
We did it in
but-
the paper. We did it. We did it in the paper. We did it on the
But-
podcast.
But we said this to Troy though too.
Yeah.
For the record though, we said don't screw this up
Yeah.
because we all,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
You know, we
And
all went to work for you. We all we all talked for you. We all we you know we let people we introduced you to people.
But we
And-
believed in him too. Don't get us wrong.
I
but
think you know right now, if he just maintains what he's doing right now, I think he's doing a fabulous
His
job.
temperament
Yeah.
in speaking to people,
Oh, I
and
know.
giving people time. When him and I are discussing things, he treats me like a professional, that he's seeking my guidance,
Mm-hmm.
trusts me. He's not coming at me with a place of being hired.
Or putting you in a situation that you're uncomfortable with.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, people even talked about that. Talked about, the people that, there are people who, a lot of people maybe don't realize this, but there's people that worked under Troy, Steve included, but not limited to Steve. But there were a lot of people who came and said, "Hey, I'll give you 2 weeks," and came and visited and helped him go door to door. And these are people that were. They weren't all like sergeant majors, and these are people that
colonels, captains, lieutenants, sergeants,
all up and down the line. Because one of the things that they were telling me when I would talk to him about Troy is they would say, he would trust our opinion on things.
Yeah.
He would he would seek our advice on things.
Yeah, somebody said
it was
that-
his decision, but he sought our appraisal of a situation.
Somebody asked me this the other day. They said, "So are you keeping your boy straight?" And I said, "Hold up." I said, first of all, 2 things. If you're trying to think that's my boy, no, I'm probably his boy because I'm not his advisor. Somebody asked me that. Are you giving him good advice? And I said, first of all, no. Campaign wise, yes, but I don't control Troy, and neither does anybody else. And I would tell you something else. Troy seeks many advice. He does not take a single source for gospel before he makes a decision. His wife is a voice of reason. You know what I mean? So
I've been very, very impressed with him, and because we didn't work together, we were on the campaign trail. That picture of the campaign night, I'm standing right beside him. That's the relationship we had developed, but we hadn't worked together on hard issues, stressful issues. And everybody that's asked me, I'm like, I've been really impressed.
Well, I was really impressed with you, and in the fact that one, you'd already won you'd already won back in May, and you were at all the functions with us. You stood side by side with all of our candidates.
And the fair, the parade,
the parade, the fair, events. We did the hot dog cookout over here.
Yes.
You were there.
I think she had the sheriff, and obviously the county clerk's office, probably the worst kind of pickle to be in because you're a Republican, you're helping run in a campaign, and you have seated opponents, running their race too. So that's got to make it awkward.
It was hard because it's like, if he doesn't win, then I have to work with the other person. And I would have. But I decided that I was putting my faith in Troy.
Yeah.
He had impressed me.
Yeah.
Every time I talked to him, he talked to me like I had value and that he was ready for us to be a team.
It says a lot.
Yeah, that says a lot.
And I've been so just thrilled with how almost everyone has treated me. And so I'm just trying to give back some of the kindness that you all gave to me. I'm not going to just get in here to win.
Yeah.
I need to,
I just figured, I look at, maybe the, in my daily life, right? I think of these situations as family.
Yeah.
Right. I really do. I mean, I don't. We may not be blood or what have you. Although
We might be.
you're a Smith, and my grandmother's a Smith. But
So maybe.
there's a lot of Smiths out there.
Yes.
But but it's just one of those things where whenever we get into a group situation, and we're going to, we work close to each other to try to get people elected and things, but we're working for you, we're working for Troy, we're working for whoever.
We worked our butts off.
We did. And I think
And
that
I appreciate all of you all.
and there's a lot of people that knock doors, and that's not. I'll tell you right now, door knocking is not my thing.
No, it's not my thing either.
It's organizing and trying to planning and things like that. That's kind of my thing. But we had a lot of people who came out and worked hard for all of our candidates. They didn't, everybody that worked for Troy worked for every one of our candidates.
Yeah.
Yep.
They went out and said, "Hey,
Shared materials, everything. Hey, and you vote
they
for this
handed out
person
for
too.
they handed out for everybody," and that's so it was it's a really big deal that we had such a good. But I think of all of these situations like family.
Yeah.
We've worked together. We understand. We have common ground.
Yeah.
And
It's been 2 years.
and so and I think
That has been 2 years.
Yeah.
It has, yeah. It really.
So I want to kind of spin the table a minute. I want to talk about an issue we talked about last week, and I want to get your take on it. I saw Nancy jump in; she was watching. I tried to reach out to her last week but she is so busy. I saw her, and
they still have another.
they're in session.
They still have another week of session.
Yeah. Supreme Court ruling on the right to life.
Yes.
So, they basically refused to strike down 2 major pro-life laws in the state, basically leaving them in place, but they send one back to the lower courts for further consideration. And basically they said that those companies don't have any skin in the game for the people.
Right.
So unless they can come back with something else, this is it's at the lower court.
I think what they're saying is that, the one that went back was the one based on the trigger.
Yeah.
Right. So the trigger law is the one that was sent back. Mm-hmm. The other one, which is the 6 week, law, they said no, that one they didn't send that one back. That one they ruled that one was constitutional or whatever. Right. So
yeah. So not that that's hopefully not a big issue in Meade County, but I mean, being an attorney, and I believe you supported the right to life amendment and stuff too from all the conversations. But was that a big victory for us and for women? And
I was worried about the status of the trigger law. You'll have to excuse my ignorance because I knew that was a thing, but I had never heard about it in any other context. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that we would have a problem if a law automatically went into effect with a certain set of circumstances.
yeah.
So I was concerned that there would be litigation about this.
Sure.
And what you have to understand is a lot of times the higher courts do not want to displace the lower courts. They put a lot of faith in them. Unless something is just outright unconstitutional, they're going to leave it in the lower court's hands.
Right.
So it makes sense that they're like, okay, we're giving this back to you to decide.
That's right.
But and everybody was happy and they thought the trigger law would go into effect. And I kind of stepped back because I was like, I'm waiting for this other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I was happy, but I was waiting for that inevitability.
But there's no reason that they could repeal the trigger law.
Yes.
Right now, and then put it back into effect.
Exactly.
With the knowledge now that knowing that Roe versus Wade was essentially overturned, and it's left up to the states.
Yeah, but I think in that context, what the Supreme Court was trying to tell them and why it went back to the circuit court is that the people who were part of the suit to do this, to justify a trigger law, have no skin in the game.
And that's
they only wanted it for capital reasons.
That's the trigger law is where they said they did have skin. Because
if they could come back and provide certain circumstances that would put them in the same.
They did not have standing on the 6 week law.
Yeah.
And part of the issue too is a lot of these cases we would call them test cases. Mm-hmm. So in order to fund something that would go all the way to the Supreme Court, you have to get almost like what you'd call a straw man to be the force that we're behind to try to change the law.
Right.
So sometimes those people don't have the type of standing that you would like for them to have.
Sure.
And so that becomes an issue also. You make it all the way up there, and then they're like, well, this isn't the perfect person or the perfect entity or the perfect set of circumstances. We'd like to do something with this, but this person that's representing this cause is not. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So let's look at this case. So it was Planned Parenthood and the other entity that brought the suit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're a business.
Yeah.
They're in the business of aborting babies. That's their business. They make money by aborting babies and then selling their stem cells, fetal tissue to other scientists and things like that. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So the question was, the 6 week law does not affect their business as right. The only way it affects their business is they don't have 9 months to convince a lady.
That's right.
Because people don't realize is those people are in this to make money.
Right.
they're not in it to try to for women's health purposes, as they say. They are in it to make dollars off of aborting babies. And so ultimately, the business, the 6-week law, they can still do their business. It doesn't bother their business model.
Right.
However, the trigger law basically eliminated it without any kind of due process of going through the legislature at that time.
So what I think the Supreme Court may have wanted to do, they may have wanted to do more. But the issue, they can only address the issues.
The constitutional.
And in the context of the people coming before that.
And if we would have passed that amendment, this would have been like A-Town, peace out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Think about it. They spent $11 million. Planned Parenthood and the other entities, all out from outside of Kentucky. We spent $11 million trying to get Kentucky not to have this amendment. And the amendment did not even ban abortion.
That's right.
The amendment simply clarified that there's no right to an abortion written into the Constitution.
But then
so that way, when the case, this case that came before, so if the legislator says, "Oh, we're banning abortion in Kentucky," they wouldn't be able to come back and say, "Oh, but there's this." There's this
very clear language.
Unclear,
and I want to take this thought because we've only got so much time. I want to bring in one more thought. It's an interesting bill. Rand Paul is doing some great work. I know our state legislators are doing some great work, but I wanted to talk about 3 things that came out in Rand Paul's letter, and it speaks to that point about clear legislation. And if you don't know this, you should go to Rand Paul's website. He is writing, there's three bills that he's put in. One is Write the Laws Act, prohibits Congress from delegating its legislative responsibilities to unelected bureaucrats and other branches of government. Second bill, Read the Bills Act, requires the full text of a measure to be published at least 7 days before a vote to ensure members have time to read the bill in its entirety before voting on it. I think that's
all 1,400 pages.
All 1,400 freaking pages. That's what they get a staff for, and all our tax dollars pay for. One Subject at a Time Act requires that each bill or joint resolution include no more than one subject. No more piling in all this fluff to get
that's the one that's never going to happen.
Well, I got it, but I mean, but if we're really trying, I'm not going to take up all of our time, but if we're really trying to work together to fix a problem in the nation, we should do it one bite at a time.
I do not disagree, and I know that we may go over,
but that's politics.
But I do want to talk about it. Well, the thing is that you have a resolution and I have a resolution, and I'm going to say, okay, I'll vote for yours if you vote for mine.
Yeah.
All right, mine goes first.
Yeah, I got you. Now we're arguing.
Now am I going to vote for yours?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I know it.
I would, but out of integrity for me. But
because I don't want to lose your vote later on something that's big.
Well, yeah. I got it. So, but you have to.
That's politics.
I got it. That's
So the fourth
unethical politics.
Yeah. Fourth one is a Senate rule provides that the Senate has 1 day to consider a measure for every 20 pages of a measure. I mean. These are bold statements.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's real.
But that's always been his mantra. Is like he is in there to hold people accountable, and I love it. You know what I mean? So.
And the thing is that for him to get traction on this stuff, that's why he runs for president every 4 years. But and I like
for
Rand
the
Paul.
reasons
I love
we
Rand
believe.
I
but
do.
everybody can look at the truth right in front of them, and they'll drive around it.
Yeah. No.
To avoid the conversation.
But the thing is
I'm
that the problem, and that it's not a problem. It's the uphill climb that he has is the fact that nobody in Washington trusts anybody
because of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the problem. The one thing that I want to see is the first one. I think it was the first one you talked about, which is the lawmakers need to write the law. Mm-hmm. And what happens right now is they write a concept.
They're afraid to write put their name on it.
And then they say it's like okay, let's put this in Meade County terms. It's like saying in Meade County that we're going to have a road ordinance. We write the road ordinance and we say, okay, we're going to have, and essentially what the federal government's been doing is saying, all right, we're going to have a road ordinance, but we're going to let the road department write all the rules and regulations around it and not put that in the law.
That is the KARs, the regulations, that is a problem because no one knows what they say. No one knows what they are. And I find that frustrating myself when I was doing a lot of research on this too. I totally agree with you. I think that creates a lot.
They should simply, the legislature should write the law.
Yeah.
That
Right. And
Yes, they should.
including the consequences and how to interpret and
It's
all that
hard,
should be
yes.
in there. I think on the federal level, every time they write a law, they should have to include the constitutional language that allows them to write that law.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that would clarify everything for
Yes.
everyone. But the
It's
thing
so
is
hard.
they wouldn't be able to get away with it.
Yeah.
They would, half the laws that are on the books would not be on the books
Right.
because they would not be able to, one, it would be on the legislature for writing the law that
Yeah.
way. They don't want to be in charge of that.
It's hard to figure out if you're doing something wrong, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, so what happens is the vagueness of it doesn't really, by law, if you write a vague law, it should go to the person that's under the law.
That's
right.
right, yeah.
Right. That's not the way it works.
Sydney,
It goes to the
going to
bureaucracy.
you for 20 seconds. What's the thing you didn't get to say tonight you want everybody to know before we leave?
That I'm trying my best to do the right thing every day.
I think you doing
It
a
sounds like
fabulous
you're
job.
even trying to take care of our citizens to the best you can.
Hey, don't
Mark,
forget,
I know we
everyone.
got some events.
Yeah, so let's talk about on Monday. We have the town hall. You'll be able to talk to Sidney. I think you'll be there on.
That's right.
That's going to be at the Doe Valley Swim and Tennis Club at 6:30.
Yes.
I think it's 6:30. Get there a little early. Get
We'll be
yourself
there.
a seat. We'll be there. We'll put it out on live on our channel.
Now, if we got internet there, it'll be live. If it's not live, we'll
It'll be-
record it,
it'll be
and it'll
Memorex.
go up as soon as it's over.
It'll be Memorex, as they used to say back in the 80s.
Amen.
So then our Lincoln Day dinner has been moved to April 25th.
April 25th.
Yeah, and that's because we will have a few candidates that are running on statewide races, and especially Daniel Cameron will be there. We're working on a couple of the other governor's candidates, but Daniel Cameron has confirmed, so he'll be there.
Absolutely. Hey, shout out to Meade Local for some local promotions of us lately. Want to say thank you for that. Your followership is amazing, and we're glad that you share us out there. And tonight, our tuned-in guest, Joe Redmond, and of course, Miss Nancy Tate. Thanks for listening to the show. Everybody, I got to just say, hey, I'm so glad that we can provide this. Maybe you listen to it, maybe you don't, but from Mark and I both.
One more thing. Next week we'll be live at the Chamber of Commerce building.
We got 2 remotes.
Yeah, we had 2 remotes.
lives.
Like Monday, and then on Thursday we'll be at the Chamber of Commerce and do a interview with Annie over there. So
We might get pretty good at this. What do you say?
yeah, I'm having a good time. If you're having a good time,
That's it. You guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning into the show.
peace.
A-Town.